I'm going to try to show you in real time how to install the rear brake shoes on the 190 SL, and this applies to lots of other cars of the era. I had the backing plate and the axle off to replace the rear axle seals. People don't realize that there's an inner and an outer axle seal, and the bearing in between is packed with wheel bearing grease, just like a front wheel bearing. These things do not lube from the differential. So if you see oil dripping from the back of the backing plate or down here, you've gone through two seals and washed out the wheel bearing. So you need to address that immediately. First things first, make sure you have all your parts laid out and all your tools ready to go. Need to figure out which shoe goes where. Do that by putting them on a flat surface, and you can see this shoe is going to go down first. Now this is going to be especially easy because I did not have to do anything with the self-adjusting mechanism, but if you took these apart and replaced them, refreshed them, then you would want to leave these slightly loose but with enough drag to where they will stay in position, so that you can position these adjusters on these pins right here, unless you took the pins out. And then once you install the shoes, you've got to move these adjusters to where they will line up exactly with the pins, so that when you screw the pin in from the back, you can screw it in by hand. You do not want to put any wrench on the pin until you actually can screw it in by hand. Otherwise, you'll strip out the threads in the backing plate. Now then, what goes on the bottom here is your pivot point down here for the shoes, and what goes there is this large spring. Next, you've got a big washer there that goes on and centers it, and then you've got your brass that keeps allows the shoes to move so that they don't rust against this washer. And then you got this right here that keeps it all in place. And what you notice is you got slots on here. So this thing indexes on the bottom right there, indexes, and that's about as easy as it is to install, especially when you're trying to push on that big spring and hold all the parts together at one time. And if you don't get that index correctly, you get it off by a smidge and you bolt everything down, you're going to pinch the flats, and then you're going to bind it, and the shoes will not move. So this is a very critical item down here. And the thing that helps me the most is big vice grips. So what I do, this is hard to do because I've got to be able to, I'm in the way of the camera. So what I do is I will put the shoes in place first without the spring mechanism. So you're at the same time you're putting them on the pin, you're obviously getting you got to go down here, put it on the pivot point, and then dovetail with your pin right here for the brake wheel cylinder. So now we're going to do the other side, and of course at the same time you've got to hook up your cable to the lever, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I want to get these dummied up first. Get this in place. Let's see. No, I don't need to do that. Nope. What I need to do is, this is what I need to do. Taking my big vice grips, and what I want to do is get them pre-set so that I can use them to clamp down on the shoe and hold it in position against the spring pressure instead of me trying to hold this all together. So I just want to get this where it'll set, just pinch it a little bit, hold it in position. So you can see I just barely got any pressure on it. Alright, so that means I can assemble everything and put all this together without having to hold everything at one time. So now I'm going to put this on here, the handbrake on here, You get this close to position. All right, so this is where the fun begins. You got your big spring that goes on here. Got this washer. And what we want to do is get all this lined up. So I'm doing the pin on the wheel cylinder. I'm getting this self-adjusting mechanism on the pin on the backing plate. At least I'm attempting to. I can find it. All right, I'm on the pin, and you can see I've got tension down here. Now let's see, what I should have done first is probably put just a smidge of anti-seize down here. Just a smidge to help the shoes pivot. Okay, not much. All right, now then, so this is, I got my big washer, I got my spring, and I'm lining them up and pushing them in place. I'm also going to use a pry bar on the tip right here to help pry it, because otherwise this will bind. It goes crooked and it'll bind up. So very carefully want to push this in position. There we go. In position. Now this is where our vice grips come in place, come in handy, and you see we're down up against that spring pressure, and everything's lined up. So now we can do this without pushing on all the springs. And you notice I've got blue tape on my shoes, keep my greasy fingers off of the material. Just a smidge of anti-seize between the shoes. All right. And this one goes in place on the pin. Come on, Papa. I know the pin's back there. You can. It's too high. That's why some people take those pins out in the back, but that presents another problem if you do it that way. So you have to decide which is the least bit of effort for you to do. Yeah, I know it's right there. What am I doing wrong? Oh, well, okay. That was it. I don't understand. It just all of a sudden it just flopped in place. Oh, I see. I see. The pin at the top for the wheel cylinder didn't. That's what was holding me up. That pin was out of place. That's what the problem was. I need to push the pin back. Okay, I'm getting pushed back from the pin on the wheel cylinder. so I got to push it in. I don't know why it's giving me trouble, but it is. Getting a lot of pushback from that pin against the inside of the wheel cylinder. That's what the problem is. Alright, let's see if I can push them both at the same time. Get these in place. Just imagine how hard this would be if you're trying to push against the spring at the bottom. Okay, finally got the pin in up here to push in all the way. I was pushing against the brakes. Now then, we got this in place down here. So next thing is the special washer, and you want to put up here. Make sure you got enough clearance for it to hold by itself. There we go. We got enough clearance. All right, so what I do is put a little anti-seize on here as well to hold it in place. There we go. That holds in place right there. And I very carefully get all my parts back. They're ready to go. And what I do is I put this on here, and I just slide it into position. I don't need any anti-seize on here because there's no pivoting going on. Just hold it in place. Very carefully. Don't move anything. Moment of truth. Let's see if we did all right. That comes loose, and the shoes will move. That shoe is not binding. Okay. That shoe is not binding. Shoe's not binding. All right, and what you're seeing here, what the movement you're seeing is the difference in diameter of the inside of this self-adjuster mechanism and the pin that comes from the back, and that is your clearance between the shoe and the drum. So when the shoe retracts, it's like this, away from the drum, and when you push out, you push out against the drum. From here, time to install the the spring for the handbrake return. Then the pins that go in from here inside, they use a wave washer and a flat washer, and this is where your little pry bar comes in, so you hold them down like this, put your cotter pin on the back, and you release, and you're all set. And then your return spring here, notice there's these ends are at 90 degrees from each other. Two different versions of return springs, one that looks like this, or with both hooks in the same plane, and it depends on what kind of shoes you have in terms of attaching mechanism. This one has a pin and a hole. Some of them have two holes, I believe. And that is how you do it. Hope it helps you guys in the future. Good luck.